Alrighty. Alrighty, just waiting for everyone to get in here. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me good? Just want to make sure before I really get started here that you guys can hear me and that I sound at least decent. Oh, come on. Alrighty. Yeah, sorry for being just a few minutes early. I went to just move my phone and damn, it hit the live button, so I guess I'm going live right now. So I'm just pulling up my computer here so we can see, so I can read your chats and everything. One of the downsides of using my phone for this is oh, where are we? Yeah, I guess, Jeff, you're right. I did catch sort of this live stream bug. I kind of always wanted to do these every once in a while, and it just seems I just always kind of came to the point right now where I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's do them. Let's see if these work. So it's my thing. Hey, Mark from Glasgow. Nice to have you here. Just as you guys are in here, can you actually hear me? This is what I was looking for. Perfect. Thank you, guys. So how's the weather where all you guys are? Because yesterday it hit about 40 degrees Celsius here, and I was like, holy crap, this is getting warm, which is good because I very much love the heat, and the hotter the better. Like, I'm one of those people where it's like, yeah, just keep the hot coming and I'll just keep loving it. I'm probably one of the few people that could probably be like, yeah, I'll go down to Death Valley and try it out there once in a while. But yeah, so what's the weather like where you guys are? Mr. Wonders, greetings from Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey, Mr. Wondrous, thanks for joining the stream here as well. Same with Pecky Peck from England. Looking forward to hearing some more Wishbone Ash reactions. Yeah, I've been kind of thinking about going back doing some more Wishbone Ash and getting that stuff all cut up on. It's really interesting. Like, they're a band I never heard of before I really started doing this. I think I heard like maybe people talking about it just Never quite actually got into listening to them, but since listening to them, I really enjoy them. I think the next reaction I'll do is Cellophane, and then I might actually check out some of their newer stuff here pretty quickly. So anyway, got a few guys in here, so No Pussyfooting by Fripp and Eno blew my mind. I've actually never heard of it. I'll actually check it out and see how it sounds. That's Fripp and Eno. That sounds like a very interesting combination, I have to say. But anyway, getting into some of mine, I thought I'd start off first. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a massive, massive Pink Floyd fan. And one of the first songs by him I heard, I call it my musical awakening, was when I heard Shine On You Crazy Diamond on the Echo's Best Pink Floyd. It was a double CD. It was disc 1, disc 2. I'm like, you know what? I like the color blue. Let's try blue. So that's the one I started with. And I have to say, like, here, I never heard anything like it before. Starts off Rick Wright's key synthesizer is amazing. Like, Rick Wright, to me, was one of those hidden weapons in Pink Floyd, not only musically, but also very much vocally as well. Is really good. And then to go into David Gilmour's guitar solos and the many guitar parts of him on that song. But the one thing I have to say about David Gilmour is up to that point, I don't think anyone would really have called Pink Floyd a guitar band by that point. Or David Gilmour in like one of those great guitar player suggestions after Wish You Were Here. He had to be in there. Like the emotion he puts on that just blew me away. Same like Echoes, like going back listening to Echoes, I have that same feeling from Gilmour where he could do blues. He could kind of do like these funky blues rhythms through it, and it works so well. Comfortably Numb is another one where the Pulse version, where watching him play that solo, that emotion being emoted, and also seeing that kind of flower unfurl on stage was mesmerizing. I remember first time I seen it, I'm like, this is longer than the album. This is way longer. But hearing Gilmour like just kind of improv, and you could tell he was having so much fun playing all this stuff, that he's one of those guitar players that I heard a bunch of songs by him, and every time I heard him, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it really dug me down that rabbit hole. Pink Floyd, very much so. I have to say, like, they've had so many where it's like, what the hell did I just hear? Dogs is another one where I heard it and I'm like, okay, it's kind of poppy, has that kind of rhythm, but then Gilmour soloing just takes it off into a whole nother direction. Oh, Mark, that's great. Nice summer day today. A friend and I took a long drive in the country, not too warm and no rain. Nice. Yeah, I know a lot of people like that where they're like, well, if it was 22, 23 Celsius, it'd be perfect. I'm like, I just like heat. I'm one of those weird people. Hey, Tommy. Thanks you for joining me in the chat. 92 right now in Charlotte. Pretty normal. Yeah, it's always pretty warm down in that area. I had an uncle that used to live down in Florida, and they always said that any job you had, you wanted to get done before at least noon because it'd be really warm. But that's good. I think there's a special thing you can click to make this top of YouTube. Oh, never knew that. I'm still getting new to this. I'm gonna try and work with some of this for a while and really start messing around with it. I thought for the first couple I'll keep them pretty normal, kind of laid back, chill, and then work with a lot of other stuff lately. Mr. Wonder Samagama was my first album, and I saw Dark Side of the Moon live while touching the stage. It launched them. They were underground before then. I'll very much agree. Pink Floyd was very much an underground band before Dark Side of the Moon. I remember watching something from I think it was Sea of Tranquility, and they were talking about Pink Floyd, and he's like, I don't know how this band got so many chances to like 7, and they didn't really hit America. But it's like you look at it and you think about it, Amagama, or not Amagama, Adam Hart Mother was #1 in England. That'll always buy you time as a band to really flesh out your sound. And granted, like even look from 67 to 73, how much music changed. It was really great era for music. Like you look at bands, uh, the Beatles, like even some would say were from about 65 to 69, like even how much they changed sound wise. Zappa changed completely, went in all these weird directions. Prague even had their many different directions they could go. It's really great. It's a great era if you're looking for bands progressing. I want to say from about 65 to about 70, or not 70, 80, if you want to see bands that have really progressed. In sound, it's something I've always really loved to go back and look at. Sheep. Yeah, Sheep is a very good song, and also, I don't think the one thing that gets mentioned enough about Sheep is how sinister that album really sounds. Rick Wright is integral to that sound of that record. As much as Gilmour's guitar, as much as Waters' lyrics and bass and vocals, Nick Mason's drums, I have to say Rick Wright on that record. That is some of his most sinister uh, and also beautiful guitar, or not guitar, keyboard sections that he ever wrote in Pink Floyd. You look at Pigs, 3 different ones, Sheep, sections of Dogs with synthesizer was kind of really different. Yeah, it's really a good record. Like Animals, I don't think Pink Floyd like other. I might be one in the minority. The one Pink Floyd record, one or two I can't really get into, is Amagama. I love this live stuff. I love the live section of that, but the studio stuff leaves something to be desired in that. It was a great idea. I think it just came a decade earlier. I felt that should have been what they did in 78 instead of 69. Like, it's one of those weird kind of things that happened, because if you look at it, 78, you had David Gilmour's studio, you had Rick Wright with Wet Dreams, Roger Waters started work on the Wall, Nick Mason, I think, was willing to do anything. Even look at the 80s and the direction they get with new wave and stuff, and everyone's like, how talks about like, oh, Pink Floyd went synth pop with A Momentary Lapse of Reason, which if you go back and listen to what Gilmour was doing, what Mason was doing, what Wright was doing, it was going that direction anyway. So it's really something interesting. Hadn't really heard. Yeah, I think with people, and I've heard this said, it's always where you come in with a band. Could be records you like with them. It's really interesting to see where people really love a record and some might absolutely despise it. But I've heard this, it's like where you come in, and I'm like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense for people. Like where you come into a band, where your fandom starts. Set the Controls of the Heart of the Sun, I like it very much. I remember first time I heard that I was playing. Oh, what the hell was I playing? Final Fantasy, some Final Fantasy game. I heard that come on, and it fit the game perfectly. Like it was some space scene in a video game, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, holy crap, this fits perfect. And Roger Waters' very soft vocal delivery to that song makes it even more sinister. Even really, it's a really creepy song to begin with, but it really fits the darker edge of Septic Trolls, or Saucerful of Secrets, I mean, for Septic Trolls for the Heart of the Sun. Several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving to a pict. Yes, I have to admit, I see what they were trying to do. I see what they were trying to do. Not my cup of tea. I'm going to be frank, it's not my cup of tea. There's times where I'm like, you know what, I can stomach it, and then there's times where I'm like, I'm done. I'm really, really done with this song. Oh, what's the next one? The Works compilation. I've actually never listened to the Works compilation albums. A lot of their compilation albums I've just never listened to. I've had whatchamacallit, the studio, so I'm like, well, I have the studio, that's good enough. I am though interested to check out the new mix of Animals that is coming out. I'm actually really excited to check that out. Astronomy Domine, that is a great song. That's one of my favorite Barrett era songs, and it's one of those where I think it's one of those where a heavy metal band could really make a great version of that. Could really cover it well and do it justice. That, and also the Nile song is another one where I'm like, I can't believe this song hasn't been covered by at least some big band, because it's a fantastic song. It's very simple. I remember learning it. It's really, the rhythm to it's very simple, but it's the soloing in it that's going to really make it. Melissa says Kashmir by Led Zeppelin, 20th Century Schizoid Man by King Crimson. Yeah. King Crimson, 21st Century Schizoid Man. I remember the first time I heard that. I'm like, Jesus, what is this? Because it's big, it's bold, it has very much that jazz to it. That I'm like, what is this? And the more and more I dug into that album, the more there's so much from that. My favorite song from that album is Epitaph. That's my favorite song from In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. Zeppelin, song from them that blew my mind. Jeez. Man, I'm trying to think of Zeppelin ones that I'm like, man, that's good. Ramble On by Led Zeppelin is one of my all-time favorite songs. I know it's probably not one of Jimmy Page's like most flashiest songs, but it's one of my favorite by the band. 10 Years Gone, as well as another Zeppelin I really like. One I haven't heard in years, I'd have to go back and listen to it. Achilles' Last Stand, I think, is probably one of the most, thinking about Led Zeppelin, it's probably one of my favorite of theirs, like top 3. Great record, just a great record from Zeppelin. Oh, what else? In My Time of Dying is another great song by them. Oh, they had so many from those. It's hard to remember exactly which one blew my mind. Tommy, I've heard of the album Songs from the Body. I believe that's Waters and Geeson, the guy who originally was the orchestra for Atom Heart Mother. I think I started listening to it and something else came up and I just didn't put it back on, but I've always wanted to actually go back and check it out. Rob Kell, David Gilmour, Live Murder, his best guitar work, and Mick Rouse. I don't think I've ever seen Murder play live. That's one thing I'll say. I'm not a big live guy. I've said that in the past. Up until really doing this, I was never like big into watching live videos. But I have to say, Gilmour would be one I'd like to go back from this era, like that About Face record, because that has some of my absolute favorite David Gilmour solo stuff on it. Murder, Love in the Air, which is so much a criminally underrated song. I believe it was written by him and Townsend. Pete Townsend helped him write that. Oh man, so many great songs. I always remember the whole "Let's Get Metaphysical" on there. That was really good. Man, Gilmour's had some great stuff. Tommy, yeah, Epitaph, and I know I heard Starless because I wanted to do a reaction to it. Fripp wouldn't let me. Damn it, Robert Fripp, and you're so heavy on his copyright. But I have to say, Epitaph and Starless are two of my favorite King Crimson songs. Patrick, hi from Ireland. Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here is great, but Shine On You Crazy Diamond is just extra special to me. Blew my mind when I heard it. Yes. It's very much like that's the first thing. I'm going from like listening to the radio, which at about 5 minutes the song's usually over. I remember on Echoes, the best Pink Floyd, it's 5 minutes in and they haven't even started. And I'm like, thinking to myself, I see there's words here. When did the words come in? But then you get the words, and then you find out the backstory of Syd Barrett. It just changed everything for me. Like, once I found out who it's about, and it's like, wow, it's just one of these probably one of the most emotional songs that has ever been put out. Just a fantastic song. Mark, I wouldn't want to listen to Several Species too often, but it was mind blown on the first listen. Yeah, it's one of those. It has a very. Can I say that bug has a very Scottish flair to it? It very much has a very Scottish flair kind of to it, I find. One of the most gifted bands from that time was Griffin, who opened for Yes and was Wakeman's favorite band. I've heard of Griffin. I think I listened to what's it called? I listened to one of their songs once, and I thought, you know what, this will be a band I want to react to in the future. Really good band. I just had to take a new mix of Animals out to the litter bin. Oh, you didn't like the new mix? I haven't listened to it yet. I'm wanting to give it a shot, see what they did with it, because it's a great band. Like, Pink Floyd's a great band. Yes, Ron Geeson, Mark Osborne, Niall's song "Happy Face." Yes, that's one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs. It's actually one of the most heaviest, which I always found that interesting. They never tried and entered into even the sort of mid-range Deep Purple, Uriah Heep. Like, I always felt they could be one band that could have done it. Keys in the Body. Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys opened my mind to the power of vocal harmony. Yeah, I can see that. Good vibration. I remember as a kid, my mom had the record Surfin' USA, and I remember listening to that, songs like Surfin' USA, Ba 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 Baran, stuff like that, and I always found it really interesting to listen to vocally. That's more of a vocal album than I'd say musical, but I haven't heard it in probably 30 years, so I'd have to really go back and listen. Like, I was really young when I heard it. In the Wake of Poseidon by King Crimson is perfect now that the floods have arrived. Yeah, In the Wake of Poseidon's really good. It's a great song. Actually, one of my all-time favorite King Crimson is Islands. I think that song's absolutely beautiful. I think it's perfect for King Crimson. I know that might not be a popular take, but out of all the Crimson songs I've heard so far, Epitaph, Starless, Islands, and Lizard are some of my favorites so far. Both myself and my sister were frightened by Schizoid because too young to really understand it, but we enjoyed the feeling of being frightened, sort of like the fair ride. LOL. Yes, that's very much. I would agree with that. That it has that sinister feel. You feel frightened, but you're taken on a ride. And King Crimson is really good at taking you on a ride. That album has so many different feels to it. I have to say, like, there's an emotional highs and lows to that record. And King Crimson were just beautiful at doing it. Tommy, Pink Floyd are live as good as in the studio. I'll agree with that. It's just I'm just sad that they didn't do more live videos through the years. It's kind of sad that they ended when they did, just as I think the live stuff was starting to really become big. Like, even look through the 2000s of a lot of stuff. I have David Gilmour at Royal Albert Hall, I believe it is, for the I want to say it was something to do with Farley Mowat, and it was just David Gilmour live, and I remember listening to it and absolutely being transported, because he not only played some of his stuff, he actually played a couple Barrett songs, which I was actually really shocked he even did. Mark Osborne, Ramble On. Yes, it's a fantastic song. Anytime you get Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant, kind of in that mid-range, not doing some of their other stuff like Heartbreak or anything, I always found that song just always spoke to me, especially that last verse. Once a tale that can't be told, freedom I hold dear, and days of old magic filled the air. Oh, as in the deep, darkest parts of Mordor, I found a girl so fair. Just great stuff. Like the Lord of the Rings references, I think, is what did it for me. Shine On blew my mind too. I'd actually like to do that, is ask how many people did Shine On You Crazy Diamond actually blow your mind the first time you heard it. Because it's one of those where everyone talks about greatest Pink Floyd songs. This would be up there for me as one of my favorites. Hello, Julian by the Rolling Beach Beatles. That would be great. Get the Beach Boys, the Beatles, and the Stones all together. Jim Tatro, the first time I ever heard One of These Days from Pink Floyd on headphones blew my mind. I was 11 years old. I have a funny story about that. I was playing, what game was it? I want to say it was Final Fantasy VIII, and I was listening to this, and they have a card game in there. And the card game sounds awfully similar to One of These Days at points, and I'm like, that's beautiful. Like, that's awesome. So I went and actually would turn the music to the TV down when playing this card game and just play One of These Days. It's a fantastic song. I think Pink Floyd were kind of ahead of their time for some of this stuff, especially their electronic music with that little key thing you see in Live at Pompeii. They have that little keyboard thing, which Roger's playing with, that became one of the, On the Run. It's interesting hearing Pink Floyd, double bass especially, Gilmour. That was quite interesting. Mr. Wonders, Epitaph and In the Country, also beautiful. I'll have to give them a listen. Like, that's one thing I like about this. I'm going through King Crimson. mostly album review due to the fact that he won't let really anyone do any of his stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go through the albums. And I'm really enjoying King Crimson. I really am. Starless is epic. Yes, it is. Hello from Grand Isle, Vermont, I believe it is. Robert, is it from Vermont? That'd be good to know. Melissa, You Enjoy Myself performed live by Fish blows my mind. Wow. Fish is another band I've never ever heard of, which is very interesting. I always find that interesting. Mark, LOL, there is a Scottish flair to several species. I knew it. Knew it. It's very much, it sounds like if Mosquito or something was Scottish and kind of that whole thing. I'm like, yeah, that's very good. Fallen Angel is also a great song from Crimson. I have to check out Red because I know I have Starless and then Red. I know Fallen Angel's on there. I'm quite excited to go into that one. Mark, Bike blew my mind too. What blew my mind about Bike is the ending, the whole rubber ducky sounding thing at the end was quite astounding to me, especially. Bike is such a, like, Piper is such an interesting album to listen to now. Especially there's so much on that album you can go back and listen and you're like, I never knew that before, but it's really good. There are also some live performances of Song Islands on DVD, which were sweeping with the most recent incarnation of King Crimson. That'd be great. I'd love to check out anything by King Crimson live. Really, I'm enjoying them quite a bit. Oh, no, my house animals. I had to take a new mix of... Okay. That makes sense now. I'm like, oh, Animals was not very good. Mr. Wonders, Lizard, Prince Rupert, Awakes, Perfection. Yeah. Most of these I'll have to get to. Lizard's really good. Melissa, Dance to Me at the End of Time, and You Want It Darker by Leonard Cohen, late great master. Yeah, Leonard Cohen's a guy, like I said in I think my last live stream, I've only heard Hallelujah by him. It's one of those where I've always meant to get there. I just have to get there. I'll eventually get to Leonard Cohen and stuff like that. Leonard was a genius. Sorry, I never saw him. Mark Shine On was pretty mind-blowing for me because I was well aware of the Sid stuff when I first listened to it. Yeah, like that would make it even more special, I think, for everyone who understood the Sid Barrett story prior. It would probably help a lot and make it even more emotional. Sniper by Harry Chapin, who I miss so much. I've never heard the song, but I'll definitely check it out. I had heard Animals, Piper, Saucer, Amagama Metal before I heard Wish You Were Here. Yeah, Animals, good album. Piper. I say this about Pink Floyd. I don't think there's... Well, I can't say that. I think there is one or two albums that I'm not a fan of, but other than that, most of the Final Cut's the other album I'm not a huge fan of. I like Gilmore's work on Not Now John. I think the Final Cut's another song I kind of like. Two Suns in the Sunset. But other than that, there's a lot of songs on there I just really do not like. I don't know why. Do you like the rock band Budgie? I've heard of them. I've actually wanted to do a reaction to something from them. I want to say something. I think one of the title tracks to their Nude Parachute named album. It's a band I've really wanted to get into because I hear a lot of people saying they're really good. Also, another band I keep putting off that I actually want to dig deeper in than just their few hits is Nazareth's another band that I think's really good. Mr. Wonders, Love One of These Days. Yes, One of These Days is a great song. Mark, Supper's Ready. That is a great song. It's one of those, every time I listen to it, I go back and listen to it, I hear something completely different that I never heard before. I think it's a musician song where there's always tidbits in there where like, I never recognized that before. It's something new. It's a song I just really enjoy. Another song I'll mention to you guys that blew my mind the first time I heard it, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath. I have to say, there's parts of that song I absolutely love, and the thing that got me, the thing that blew my mind about it, wasn't just how heavy like that opening riff is. It's like, that's a really good chugging Iommi riff. It gets more to the end of that song when you're getting the type stuff from Iommi and Geezer Butler and Bill Ward. Fantastic. Like, the ending to that is so heavy. It's like Sabbath was, to me, one of those bands. I actually never realized this until I look back on it. I've never heard Volume 4. I've heard songs from Masters of Reality, from Paranoid. I've heard the whole thing. Black Sabbath, heard the whole thing. Masters of Reality, I think I've heard most of it. Heaven and Hell heard, but the Ozzy era, just a great, great song. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath just changed everything for me. And it's very interesting because I grew up with parents that are Christian. Like, my dad was always open to listening to music. And it's like, okay, Mom, not so much. She didn't care for the heavy stuff. My dad, really, for the most part, either. He'd say, I don't want to listen to that headbanger crap. But I remember hearing Black Sabbath, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and I'm like, that song not only is heavy, that song feels evil. It feels and fits the name Black Sabbath. And I remember just listening to it. Even Iommi's guitar playing switches so much. You have that fast riff. Then you have very melodic sections of that song that I think get very much underrated. Do you rate Yngwie as a guitar player? Oh man. Like, where would I rate Yngwie as a guitar player? Or where would I rate Yngwie's ego as a guitar player? Because those are two probably different things. I don't mind Yngwie Malmsteen in doses. I really want to say this. I'm not against anybody, because he is a fantastic guitar player. Like, the stuff he can do on a guitar is amazing. I think what he's always kind of had very much is a very big ego and thinking very highly of himself. But I don't hold that against him, because if you talk to a lot of guitar players, especially from the 1980s, they all have that bravado. And I find it very interesting. Pecky Peck, do you think John Sloman was the wrong fit for Uriah Heep? Yes. I think Sloman was the wrong choice for Uriah Heep. Part of me also believes, and this might not be a popular opinion, I think also John Lawton was not a good fit for Uriah Heep. I think John Lawton was actually fit for a Heep. He just wasn't fit for the time he entered the band, because the material wasn't necessarily the best that he got saddled with. But the two albums, Firefly and Innocent Victim, were really good albums. But I think once Fallen Angel happened, I think the decline of Heap was very evident that they were running out of ideas. But also, Sloman, part of me, here's the biggest what if. And I think it's one of the best what ifs ever. What if 2112 failed and Geddy Lee joined Uriah Heep? Because I think Geddy Lee would have been a perfect fit for Uriah Heep. Carefree, Highway Beautiful, and The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald by Mr. Gordon Lightfoot. I've heard of Gordon Lightfoot. I know he's Canadian. Never listened to him. Like, it's not through not wanting to. I think every time I went to listen to him, something else came up, or I got busy that day, and it's like, well, I'll go back to it, and just never got around to it. Like, that's the problem with all this stuff. There's not enough time in the day to listen to all this great stuff. Sniper is profound, as is Elton's Ticking, similar theme, so popular today, sadly. Yeah. I think Paranoid was Sabbath's song that did it for me. Yeah. Or Paranoia. Yeah, Sabbath has a ton of songs where I can look back on and I can say, hey, you know what? They have some really kick-ass songs. Sabbath, fantastic at Iommi, great riff maker. Great riff maker. Probably one of the best at writing a guitar riff, and it's sad to say that nowadays I don't think he's really gonna end up doing very much. Kind of the Jimmy Page thing. I really wish that Jimmy Page, Iommi, and them would get out and start something else. Like, it doesn't have to be like live, but they could put out some studio stuff. I really would love to hear Jimmy Page with some different guys that are around. My God by Jethro Tull. Yes, that is a fantastic song. That's a song that the more I listen to it, the more I'm entranced by it, and it's soft, but it's very, very sinister in its approach. It's really good. I really enjoy it. Jeff, hey Wayne, hey everyone. Hey Jeff! Glad you can make it here. Mr. Wonders, Deep Sabbath. Are you talking about Ian Gillan's time in Black Sabbath? Because I'll be granted, I never listened to the record, but part of me, I've heard a lot of people, like I know, I watched a thing on Sea of Tranquility, they were talking about Black Sabbath, and I have to say, like, they really talk about that Born Again record, and I'm thinking, you know what? Go back and I'll go and listen to it, because it sounds like it could be a great record. Just the problem is I hate when people tell me, oh, you have to listen to this, this is amazing, as it puts it on a pedestal that if I don't find it amazing, I feel terrible telling people I didn't care for it. Patrick, Hi, War Pigs blew my mind as a young man. The lyrics, Satan laughing spreads his wings. Oh Lord, yeah. Definitely helped me explore heavy music, and Sabbath are still influencing today. Yes, that's the greatest thing about Black Sabbath, especially heavy metal, is you can take so much from Black Sabbath. Great band. Lyrically as well, I think the one part of Black Sabbath that is interesting is the band itself. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Bill Ward write a lot of their lyrics? I could be completely wrong, but fantastic band to listen to. Like, they have so many great, like, even think about some of their songs and stuff, like even some of the stuff from the original debut, it's like, that's really good. Planet Caravan's another song I really enjoy by Black Sabbath. It's different for them, and that's what I loved about the 70s you could do whatever the fuck you wanted really on a record. You could be as different as you wanted to. You just had to write at least a couple songs that the label's like, well, we can sell that to put that on radio. Jeff, I was already in love with Yes when they released Close to the Edge. I'm still blown away. Still am to this day. Close to the Edge is very much like Supper's Ready. You can listen to it a million times and you can always pick something out from it. Part of me, I love John Anderson on that song. Rick Wakeman opened him up a lot musically in that band. Chris Squire, you had 5 virtuosos in a band. Granted, like, I know Close to the Edge isn't everyone's cup of tea, but it's still a great song. Patrick McGrath, Planet Caravan by Sabbath is one of the coolest songs of any era. I agree with that. I love that song. It's so different. It's so unique. That's why I like it. Ozzy's wife. Oh yeah, Harriet. She ain't that hot. Yeah. Damn. Well, I've always. I don't know. I like the first 2 records. Those are the only 2 I've really delved really deep into with Ozzy, with Randy Rhoads. I've always been hesitant going further, and some say there's some really good stuff, some say there's some really bad stuff. The whole Aqualung album is, I'll agree with that. Everything I've heard from it so far, Aqualung, Locomotive Breath, My God. I feel like there's one more in there. They're all really damn good songs and fantastic. Just to listen to Tull's Isle of Right performance, I agree, Tommy is outstanding. I seen My God perform there. Ian Anderson has to have stamina for days. I'll say that right off the bat. To be able to play flute, sing, and not run out of breath or faint on stage is one of those. I think that's Tull's biggest accomplishment. Oh, Geezer Butler wrote most of the lyrics, yes. Geezer, fantastic writer for the band. Like, he always had that lyrical sense about him. Like, I remember listening to a lot of their lyrics, and I'm like, that sounds really cool. But it's interesting listening to bands where the singer doesn't write the lyrics. I kind of like those bands a lot. Gordon Rhymes with Legend. Okay. The album Close to the Edge is 3 songs, and all 3 are masterpieces. Close to the Edge and You and I and Siberian Cat. Yeah, Jeff, I'll say that. That is very much true. It is a masterpiece. It's one of those. I'm thinking of doing an album war series, and the first 2 albums that come to mind, Close to the Edge and Relayer, because they're so similar in approach. Like, you can tell, Yes, scene after Tales. So, like, you know what? Why not do the Close to the Edge thing again? Kind of thing. Mark also heard The Sunrise. Yes, that's the next song I'm going to talk about. Perfect timing. Heart of the Sunrise by Yes is the first song I heard by him where I'm like, wow. Actually, I'll do a double bill. Close to the Edge, Starship Trooper are 2 songs that I listened to, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just hear? Chris Squire, amazing bass player, just kills it. Just makes me want to sit down, just take a camera, watch live performances, and say just focus on Chris Squire. But it's very interesting. Rick Wakeman, fantastic on the keys. Also, uh, I believe Bill's still in the band at this point. His drumming on this is superb. Like, that's something I want to say. Yes has always had a competent drummer. Really good drummers. Whether it be Bill or Alan. I'm not sure who they got to fill in for Alan White. Like, I haven't gone too much into the new Yes. That's what I like to call it, the new Yes smell. But we'll see. But Heart of the Sunrise is a great song. Starship Troopers, well, I love the sort of building up of that bass and seeing just Chris Squire go to town, and especially in later years, seeing him with this big stage presence behind him and him like slapping the bass and like pointing and go bam with the bass, great stuff. Like he's one of those guys that you look at in a band full of virtuosos, he just stands out. And I've always thought about another thing about John Anderson. He would be a guy I would love to interview because he seems like the type of guy that would just be so happy. Like he's just so happy all the time. It's like you could invite him over to dinner. He'd tell stories. He'd want everyone to get along. Because I bet you John Anderson has quite a lot of stories from the road and all these years, and he's somebody I'd always enjoy to just listen to. Speaking of John Anderson touring with Paul Green's Rock Academy, John with 24 teens on stage in the Chicagoland area right now, incredible shows. These kids are amazing. Yeah, that's one thing I have to say is I like it when these, what I kind of say, the old rock stars go out and try and teach and bring out the next generation. Because unless you do that, the next generation is losing the music. And some might look at it and be like, oh my God, it's fantastic. Like, if you could, I've always thought of this way. If I did this and I only had one person watching, I'd be like, hey, you know what? One person is enjoying this, like doing these reactions and stuff. They're discovering something new that they wouldn't necessarily have found otherwise. And that's why I love doing this. I love just having people, and even having people who experienced it, they're like, you know what, I love, and even they say, I love seeing new people getting into this because it's such great music. And that's what I love about music, is everybody gets something different from it. You either love it, you hate it, but there's an appreciation there. And I've always had appreciation for people who are willing to put themselves out there, go up on stage, perform something. And whether I like it, I hate it, there's a mutual respect for it. Paul Green is the creator of the School of Rock, not Jack Black in his movie. Yeah, I have to say, as far as Jack Black goes, I don't mind Jack Black. Like in School of Rock, it's a different thing. It's kind of a Jack Black movie, but yeah, the School of Rock is really interesting. The Mortar Coils Song to the Siren. I've never heard of Mortal Coils. They're another band I'm going to go check out one of these days. John just did a radio interview a few days ago. Find it on YouTube. I'd love to. Like John Anderson, even hearing him speak, like you can tell he's probably the most happiest man in the world. Like it's one of those where it's like, I would hate to see somebody piss John Anderson. Actually, I think there's people out there that probably love to see John Anderson angry. Just once, to say the most happiest man is angry. But I have to say, he's really amazing. Mr. Somewhere by the Mortar Coil is where it's at. Okay, I'll check it out. John and Todd Mobile in Iceland with orchestra playing Awaken is the soundtrack to Heaven. Yeah, I love the song Awaken. I tried doing it, I think, about a month ago, and for some reason, I have no idea. Same concert, I'm allowed to do Siberian Katru. Next one, not able to do Awaken. Who knows? But anyway, I'm gonna check it out. I'll do that version because I really love the song. I think it's beautiful. It's probably one of Yes's most beautiful songs. Let's see. Oh, sorry to hear about that, Melissa, that you have arthritic fingers, keep misspelling words, lol. Yeah, it's one of those sad things about as we get older, all this other shit happens, and I'm like, I remember having people telling me, it's like, yeah, wait till you hit my age and you can experience all the joys of life. Pretty much pain. But it's like, yeah, I'm like, now as I'm getting older, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably am. Market Sublime, Supernatural, yeah. Also, their version of the Sid Barrett song "Late Night" is amazing. I've actually never heard it. That is something I'd love to sit down and listen to. I enjoy Sid Barrett's album, "The Madcap Laughs," so much. Like the one thing I'll say about Sid Barrett's "The Madcap Laughs" is it's 40 minutes that feels like 10. I remember listening to it and Terrapin, Here I Go, what else on that? Late Night, she was long gone, long, long. It's a great record. Like, it's sad it never sold. Here I Go is one of my all-time favorites. I did it for a battle of bands once where it was just me up there, and I just did Sid Barrett's Here I Go. It's fantastic. Even that Barrett record he did as well, the second one, is also really good. Like, it's kind of a shame that mentally what happened to him happened, but there's just some great stuff out there. Box of Rain by the Grateful Dead. Grateful Dead is a band, surprisingly, never really. I've delved into them a little bit here. I want to delve a little more. It's kind of the weird thing about it is the listening to everything. Like there's only so much time in the day, and I also work a full-time job. Like I know there's some that do this and they're like, well, I do it more as like there are people that do it as a job, and I'm like, I'd never. That's not my thing. Like I like just coming home, listening to a couple songs, recording it for guys, uploading it, seeing what you think. I know there is some that put their stuff behind a paywall. That'll never be me. I very much, because I do have a. I want everybody to see it. I just don't want to have people who have to pay to see it, and I hate that. That's something about a lot of stuff. Everyone looks out for money. I can give crap if I'm poor doing this. I just enjoy doing it. But yeah, the Grateful Dead, they have some great songs. One of my all-time favorites is Casey Jones. I did that also for a Battle of the Bands once. Great song. But listening to some of their other stuff, uh, The Music Never Stops is also very good. Trying to think of what else I heard. Friend of the Devil is an interesting song. They have very much kind of a country feel without it being country. And that's one thing I'll say about the Grateful Dead. Don't forget Fish, you enjoy my self reaction, lol. Hey Wayne, your enthusiastic reactions. Oh gosh. Damn screen. Enthusiastic reactions are one of the first things that made me subscribe to your channel. Yeah, I'm always open to new stuff. I know at times I might not be. I know in the past I was very unreceptive to a lot of stuff, mostly because I get so much from people saying, "Oh, have you heard this?" And it's like, no. They're like, "Oh my god, it's like the greatest stuff ever," and it's like, then I hear it and I'm like, are we listening to the same thing? And then I remember hearing somebody explained to me once, like, we all hear music differently. So what they like, they could absolutely love. Doesn't mean you like it, doesn't mean this, but at least have an open mind. And I found, you know what, during the pandemic and everything and listening to new music, I'm like, you know what, seeing some of these things pop up, and I'm like, most of the stuff I've never heard. So it's like, I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what, I really enjoy music. Have an open mind, listen to stuff I've never heard before. If I like it, I like it. If not, I'm not out anything. It's like I can say, well, I gave it a shot. That's a bad word, country. Yes, it is. Uh, where I am right now, they're holding the Big Valley Jamboree, which if sometimes the wind catches it right, it blows it right to my place to where I have to listen to it. And I'm not a huge country guy. I remember once I was sick and his parents had a motorhome out by the campground, so I had 3 days of listening to stuff that I never thought I'd listen to, and especially being sick and being subjected to it's even worse. Like, not to say that there isn't some country that I don't mind, it's just as a whole, it's not my style, it's not my jam. And I don't even think country music is country music anymore. I think it's trying to do something else, and who knows. But on to another song that I have to say blew my mind the first time I heard it would be Behind Blue Eyes by The Who. I remember I was just on the radio one day and it just came on, and hearing just this mellow little acoustic kind of number there, and I'm just sitting there listening to it, and then I heard Roger Daltrey's voice, and I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. The Who with that song kicked ass. And whether it be Daltrey, Townsend, the band is absolutely amazing. I love listening to that Who's Next record. It's the only Who record I own, and I remember going in there, I specifically bought it for Behind Blue Eyes, and then I listened to it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's on the show CSI, and that's on the show CSI. I'm like, okay, so I know a couple songs off this record, but the more I dug into it, Bargain, My Wife, The Song Is Over, Behind Blue Eyes, leading into Won't Get Fooled Again, just a great record. And I remember listening to it, and I'm like, this is a fantastically well done. The only problem with it was it was coming in after listening to Pink Floyd and listening to Won't Get Fooled Again, which at the time I'm like, this sounds choppy. To me, it doesn't sound clean, which I kind of got spoiled listening to Gilmore, but it's fantastic. Hearing some of the different things they did on that record, which I then found out later was supposed to be a Pete Townsend record, but he had such trouble with it that he had to bring in The Who to finish it. It's really good. Keith Moon, I think, had some really great drumming. I love him on Won't Get Fooled Again. There's a lot of Keith Moon drumming I like, and John Entwistle bass playing is insane. Like, he really... It's interesting watching that album and watching him play. I'd seen a couple songs live years ago, and it sounds like such a slow song, but you just see John Entwistle back there going like, I'm like, what the hell is going on? Kid Rock is as far as I go as his country song. Yeah, I can see it, Kid Rock. Granted out here, I think more people go out here to party than they actually do anything else. And it's very interesting because out here in Alberta, Canada, they do a thing every year where it's like, what are the main causes of sexually transmitted diseases? And there's 3 of them in Alberta where they spike: the Calgary Stampede, Big Valley Jamboree, and the Canadian Finals Rodeo. What do all 3 of those things have in common? Cowboys and country music. So that's my thing. I'm not the biggest country fan in the world. I think a lot of people know that about me. Even at work, I worked at a place where they played from morning until we left at 4. All that got played was country music, and I by the end of the day, I was done. I'm like, there's days where I felt like taking that radio and throwing it across the railway tracks. So I'm like, screw this. Hank Williams wrote in some amazing songs. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say Hank Williams. There's some I'll probably go and check out. Like, I don't mind Johnny Cash. Don't mind some Waylon Jennings every now and then. I had a lot of people tell me Brad Paisley and Vince Gill, check them out. If nothing more, just for their guitar playing skills. Who's next? Great album? Yes, Jeff, it is. Shadow of a Man and the Great Pecking Order from an album called The Grand Pecking Order by Oysterhead, Les Claypool from Primus, Trey Anastasia from Fish, and Stuart Copeland from The Police. That sounds amazing. I've heard of Primus. I know they have a song called Wyona Has a Beaver or something. I've just never listened to them. It's interesting. I've always wanted to. It's so weird looking. I'm like, do I want to watch this today? I actually might. That might be my first time reaction. Might be the music video for that Beaver song. Because I'm like, it looks so interesting. It looks like, what's that movie? The second Santa Claus movie where they have plastic Santa. That's what it kind of looks like to me, and I'm quite excited to look at it. Tommy Bob O'Reilly. Yeah, it's a great song. I think sadly, I think it got overplayed with CSI to the point where a lot of people hated the song. I think it's a fantastic song. Like, I've never grown tired of it. I really like it. The Eastern version, Baba Ganoush O'Reilly, is pretty good too, with hummus. Hummus. I was told many times by my elders is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Hence the you enjoy myself reminders. Yeah. Oh man. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. One of my parents making a mountain out of a molehill. I said that once and my wife looked at me like, what does that mean? I'm like, you never heard the old saying, making a mountain out of a molehill? It's one of those great ones that I even say it at work, and some people are like, what are you talking about? Because I work with some younger people. So I wonder if it's just a generational thing where it's like you're making the most out of nothing. The Big Valley. The Big Valley. Yeah, the Big Valley. Jamboree. Damn. I know it brings in some money for the city, but we used to have we'd have that and a rock festival called Stage 13, but somebody died one year and so many people complained, especially being in a retirement town. A lot of seniors complained that they don't want that devil music around, so we lost that. Love me some less. Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard this band. I know it's shown up on my Facebook that they're doing a tribute to Farewell to Kings, playing the album in its entirety. And it's one of those I'm actually going to look into actually checking it out. The Who. Less Paul, less miserable. More Paul, more miserable. Yes. More money, more problems. On to the next song that blew my mind the first time I heard it. Actually, is a song I heard here, and it's actually the first one I started doing once I got actually into doing this more consistently. And I have to say, the one song that I have to talk about, Victim of Changes by Judas Priest, is fantastic. I have to say, going back listening to it, I love that early era Judas Priest. There's something about it that's so melodic, and underneath that feels so dirty and sinister. Especially Dreamer Deceiver had that last Rose of May, which I was kind of like, they did like a love ballad, and I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. I'm gonna hit the sack. Nice talking to y'all. I'll just leave you with one more title, Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah, have a good night, Mark. Good sleep. Bohemian Rhapsody, man. Oh, Queen's weird for me because they're a band that I remember the first album by them I heard was News of the New World, and I loved. I think my parents kind of took the record away from me as a young kid because I would play nonstop Spread Your Wings, which was one of my favorite. Bohemian Rhapsody is interesting. Bohemian Rhapsody is very interesting for me. It's not one of my favorite Queen songs. I think, oh man, going back and listening to it, I really like discovering their B-side stuff because it's refreshing because you never hear any of it, and some of it's actually really good. Bohemian Rhapsody, I think, goes into the overplayed to the point where anybody hears it, they just want to kind of go and strangle somebody. I don't know why. There's days I can tolerate it. There's also other days where I can't. But anyway, back to Judas Priest, Victim of Change. Great song. Fantastic. The guitar playing on it by KK Downing and Glenn Tipton. Fantastic. The drumming, I believe Les Binks is the drummer at that time. And the bass on it's amazing. But to me, what really sets that song apart is Rob Halford. I think if you're a heavy metal fan, Rob Halford has that voice where he can go low, he can go like almost high shriek, but man, can that guy sing! And I love him. One of the few guitar players that I would say, or not guitar, singers that just changed me. I'm like, that guy is good, and it really made me want to check out more Judas Priest. Beyond the Realms of Death is another great song by Judas Priest. I'm getting more into their 80s stuff. Like, I've heard their hits. Got Another Thing Coming, Living After Midnight, I believe it is, Breaking the Law. But yeah, that song blew my mind. Victim of Changes by Judas Priest. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. It's great, great song. I know heavy metal's not for everybody, but that whole era in there completely changed me. I Feel a Change Coming by Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's interesting because I did listen to Bob Dylan probably when I was about 18. I went through a Dylan kick where I listened to, I bought this CD, The Essential Bob Dylan, to hear kind of him through the years. And I picked out a few songs I really, really liked. I liked Girl from the North Country's one I really liked. Oh, what is it? Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. I love that song by him. Problem with Bob Dylan, I have to be in the mood to listen to Bob Dylan. I just can't listen to him willy-nilly. It's always been that way where I'll probably listen to 2-3 songs, take a break, 2-3 more songs, take a break. It's a shame because some of the songs I really do like, but I'm just not sure if it's his voice. That and the fact I don't think I'm very much a folk guy to begin with either. But some of it I really like. Like one folk, kind of folky artist I really love is Judy Sill. I could listen to her voice for days. Great singer. Many years ago, Freddie was noted as saying he wanted Queen to be more like a mix of Yes and Zeppelin. I think they did a great job. Yeah, I can see that. Mix of Zeppelin and Yes. But I feel like going back and listening to them, they had a progressive edge to them. Like they had a really good edge. Uh, Another song by Queen that I love that's from that 80s era is Princes of the Universe. The old Highlander theme. I love that song. I think it's one of those songs that I hear from the 80s where it had balls to it. Aces High by Iron Maiden blew my mind when I heard it first. The speed of the song caught me off guard. Became a Maiden fan for life after hearing it. For me, Strange World from I believe their first record. Because I was listening to that first record and I'm like, everything on it's kind of heavy, hard, in your face, that new wave British heavy metal. But there's two songs on there. I can't remember the other one, but I remember Strange World being so completely different than anything else. And I love Deano's voice on that. The guitar playing as well as silky smooth. It feels very much like Frozen Rainbow by Saxon, where they have that same thing on their first album. Their first song is very almost prog, almost blues rock, I think is the best way to say it. I'm the girl from the north. LOL, I'm across the bay in Duluth, Minnesota, where Bob attended high school. I often traveled on Highway 61. Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. Uh, Iron Maiden's videos, the writings on Iron Maiden video, the writings on the wall. Yeah, Iron Maiden has some really great videos I hear. Like, I've actually never checked out any of their videos, but there's so much good stuff by them that I've actually come to really enjoy. I like Alexander the Great, Caught Somewhere in Time, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner's really good. Evil That Men Do is interesting. Like, they have so many different eras. I love those first two records. Heard a little bit of Number of the Beast. I think I might have actually finished it. So first three records I really enjoy by them. I'm a Rock by Paul Simon. I heard it in high school. I don't think I've actually ever gone back to listen to it, sadly. Four Simple Words by Frank Turner. Never heard of Frank Turner. That's have to check him out. Man. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting. Another song that kind of blew my mind the first time I heard it. Uriah Heep's Lady in Black. It's not the most insanely technical song ever, the most heaviest. There's just something about its simplicity, I want to say, that really blew me away. When I heard it, I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. I can't wait to hear more from this band. Such a great thing. Like, I watch so much, or I hear so many people talking about different things that I remember where I was the first time I heard it. It's one of these songs that I heard, and I'm like, the lyrics. I asked my dad once. Sorry for being scatterbrained here. What his favorite song was, and he said "Lady in Black," and I said, "Well, who sung it?" Uriah Heep. And I never knew anything about it. I didn't even know how to spell Uriah Heep. Neither did he, but he remembered that, and I remember listening to the song and the words in it just absolutely hit me right here. I'm like, and it made me discover so much more of their stuff. Uriah Heep's fantastic. They're really great. Like and to have that simple little acoustic Ken Hensley singing, and then all of a sudden you get that dan, just blew me away. I loved listening to Uriah Heep, especially that song was the first one I heard, and instantly from that song I was hooked. And it probably helped that the next song I heard was Angels Walk With You from at that time their new album Wake the Sleeper. Made me instantly a fan. Yeah, I definitely will check out Frank Turner, Paul Simon, and listen to him quite a bit, because I've heard a lot of people say you have to check out Paul Simon, and it's one of those where it's like, do I do it? Kind of like The Rush, where I feel like I'm pressured into listening to some of their stuff, and I don't want to. Chili Peppers is another band where people kept saying, "Oh, you got to hear the Chili Peppers. Got to hear the Chili Peppers. They're so amazing." I think the only album by them I listened to, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which I actually like. I like that record. Um, Californication was all right, but they tried to get me into Stadium Arcadium, and the more and more I tried, I just couldn't. I'm like, this is just no, not working today. I love The Boxer by Paul Simon. It's probably the song I played the most on guitar. Oh, I've never heard it. I'll definitely check it out. Boxer, but man, yeah, that would be a. Yeah, another song that actually blew my mind the first time I heard it. Steve Vai, For the Love of God. I remember I kept seeing in Guitar World they're talking about the Steve Vai guy. I'm like, who the hell is Steve Vai? Because at that time I was really new. Like I knew of Keith Richards, I knew of Pete Townsend, David Gilmour, a few others. I'm like, okay, so who's this Steve Vai guy? And I remember listening, thinking, okay, well let's just type in Steve Vai to YouTube, see what comes up. For the Love of God came up, so I'm like, okay, I'll give this song a chance. I remember hearing that first opening little. I remember that first melody line to it, and I'm like, ooh, this is different. And I'm like, okay, well, is there words to this? And he's just playing, and it's all instrumental. And the more I listen to Steve Vai, the more I'm like, Jesus, this is great. Like, his tone, his melody. Then I later found out, once I got into Zappa, that he also played with Frank Zappa. I'm like, oh, I gotta check out his stuff with Zappa, so checked out some of that. Then I found out he did some work with. However, for some reason, I never went to his Whitesnake stuff. I don't know why. Like, maybe I was kind of around that time a little musical snobbish and like, oh, it's 80s, it doesn't matter. Because my dad didn't enjoy the 80s music scene very much at all. He hated it. So a lot of that I was never exposed to as a kid. Uh, and then you keep hearing about all these interviews people are doing. Oh, but it was the 80s. The 80s sucked. We killed hair metal. And kind of makes me now want to go listen to some of Steve Vai with Whitesnake. Because I think that would have been an awesome pairing. But man, yeah, I can't believe it's almost been 15 years since I first heard For the Love of God by Steve Vai. That, fuck. Steve Vai is just fantastic to listen to. Oh, what other songs blew me away the first time I heard it? Frank Zappa's My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mother. That is one of my all-time favorites. Like, the live version, of course, not the album version. For some reason, I found it on YouTube and started listening to it, and the more I listened to Frank, I was like, okay, he's interesting, he's quirky. Then I heard My Guitar Wants to Kill You, Mama. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. And whoever he had singing it just fit it perfectly because it's silky, silky smooth. I'm like, yeah, this song works. That and also Motherly Love, which I'm like thinking to myself, okay, he's got a song called or as a band called the Mothers of Invention. He's singing Motherly Love about groupies. But however, if you don't know any of that, you'd think he's talking about incest. And it's like, no, he's not. He's talking about groupies. Like, I remember playing this around somebody and they're like looking at me weird, and I'm like, no. And so I explained to him what it's about, and he's like, well, why didn't you just call it group? Like, pretty much say screw groupies or whatever. I'm like, because you couldn't say that back then. But he always had a fun towing the line with censorship. Favorite Zappa song is Billy the Mountain. Oh man. I know I've heard it. I did go through Zappa's discography. I just can't remember place exactly what song it is. It's one of the sad parts about Frank releasing so much so soon, and some of it just kind of gets lost into what is. I know Muffin Man with him and Beefheart is amazing. Like, that solo at the end of Muffin Man. Oh, okay. An album side, yeah. Is it the long country sounding one he did? That's because I know there's one song in there he did that sounded awfully country. And I know it was a really long song. Oh man. Yeah, there's so many great songs out there that I remember first time I heard it being like, oh my god, that's amazing. It's about a mountain, totally bizarre. Yeah, I'd say that. When you got Frank Zappa and the word bizarre, I think they go almost hand in hand with one another. But I'm totally like, oh, I bet it is. Ah, man, it's kind of one of the crappy things about having headphones and listening sometimes when you're working is you can never really pay too much attention to what's going on the song. So I was kind of always like, I'd hear stuff, but it's like, how much of it did I retain or actually know? Yeah, Nightwish is another band where I've heard a couple songs. Like, watching them live is amazing. Like, I really enjoyed their cover of High Hopes by Pink Floyd, which I was always like thinking to myself, okay, Pink Floyd, I hear this band called Nightwish, and everyone's like, oh my god, you gotta check this out, you gotta check this out. And it was actually one of the first live videos I actually did on YouTube reacting to, and have to say, they did a great job of that song. Like, I love their guitar player. I can't remember if it's Impu or Empu or it's Finnish. Is what it is. It's kind of one of the crappy things about my memory is names sometimes not really great with, but they're a fantastic live band. They're one of those bands I'd love to see live. And that was the first time I seen them where I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. And they just completely changed. Like, I remember I went through a stretch there where it's like, would everyone get upset if I just did about a month straight of nothing but Nightwish, and then I thought, you know what, I shouldn't do a full month of it. That might get too much. But yeah, they are a great band. They're a band I discovered that I actually really find I enjoy. I know symphonic metal's not for everyone. I told you I saw Frank in college. The following week was Jeff Beck. Oh my god. Wow. I always wondered what a collaboration between the two would sound like. Because I think Frank had enough respect in the music community that I think nowadays Frank could have worked with anybody. That would have been great. Smells Like Teen Spirit and Nirvana and Social Suicide by Bad Religion blew me away the first time I heard them. For me, out of that whole grunge, the one that really blew me away was Love Hate Love by Alice in Chains. Still probably one of the few grunge era songs I absolutely love. I've heard of Bad Religion. I've never listened to them, which I always find very, very interesting. Very much like punk. What was the one song? EMI by who is it? EMI by the Sex Pistols was the first one that really blew me away, where I'm like, oh my god. Like, I know Johnny Rotten sounds like he can't sing, but you put him in with that music, I'm like, yes. The only grunge worth listening to was Pearl Jam. For me, it was either Alice in Chains, especially that first record, Facelift. I really like that record. Dirt depended on the song. I haven't really explored them too much after that. Soundgarden songs here and there, which is really sad because my favorite Soundgarden song is Pretty Noose, and they'll probably never play that ever again due to circumstances, but it was one of my favorites. Same with Blow Up the Outside World was a decent song from what I heard of them. But yeah, grunge was never... I know a lot of bands got classified as grunge, but I'm kind of like, are they? Like, I really love the Black Crowes. I classify them more as just a rock band than a grunge band. That would be a band. Remedy. The first time I heard Remedy, I'm like, what is this? That blew me away. Especially with his great they had a great singer in that band. Reminded me a lot of something you'd find with like kind of a cross between Rod Stewart and Robert Plant. But I loved his voice. Remedy, Twice as Hard. Oh, what else? She Talks to Angels was another song of theirs that I really liked. Their hits are good, but some of even their B-sides are absolutely amazing. Like, that's what I like about them. They sound more to me like a rock band than a grunge band. Yeah, Robinson, he's really good. The other band, Stone Temple Pilots, I like in doses. I find them more of a rock band than really a grunge band. Like, I think that term just got thrown around way too much, especially in the 1990s, where it's like, well, they're grunge. Why? Because they're not hair metal, they're grunge. And I'm like, well, they're not really grunge band. They're more based in rock and roll than they are metal. Like, there's so many bands out there where I'm listening to them and I'm like, the one thing I differentiate a lot of those bands from is their music doesn't make you want to kill yourself. That's kind of the differentiating thing. And some of it's very, I look at the 1990s as a very depressing era. Like, there was some innovation in it, but for the most part, it felt very down, if that makes sense. Like, even, I never agreed with the whole, well, like, almost overnight the killing of hair metal, because I thought, you know what, they deserve to have their place, very much like prog. They deserve to have their place where they can go write their music, have their career. It just really sucked that everyone was very much against certain things, and I really love certain eras of music, but the 90s is one where you really could tell there was a drop in quality. And also, a friend of mine actually had a really great thing, is he said, you know what it also did with a lot of these shitty bands is they never understood their worth, so it drove all the prices of bands down for a lot of them, to the point where you could no longer make a living playing music anymore, where guys had to go get a job. Like he said, you started to see a lot more DJs in the 90s than you did bands, which was kind of sad, because he's like, especially in our area, it used to be like you could play 4 or 5 places in our area and you could make pretty decent money doing that week in, week out, or even once or twice a month play a show. And the more I hear about it, the more it's like, yeah, you can't really do that anymore. Everyone kind of needs an actual job to be in a band anymore. Jeff, 10 years of shit music. Yeah. The decade started out good. Like, I thought the 90s actually started out very good. I feel once MTV stopped being music and being reality television, didn't help either. Because no bands were getting exposure anymore. And unless you were the latest rap or pop sensation, that seemed to be all they played. Which was kind of sad for a lot of bands that probably could have used a lot of that exposure. Yeah, it's very, very interesting looking up. That should be a topic video for one day, looking at the 1990s and what went wrong. Because I know metal went away for 10 years almost in America. Like, it wasn't until like the early 2000s. Because I remember, oh man, listening to radio up here, like, you could tell about 2000 it started to get heavier again. Because it stopped being the Christina Aguilera's, the Britney Spears, all that stuff, and it started to go a lot more heavier, towards heavier bands. Some of the bands, and sadly it was the nu metal that it was getting played, but there was some great metal out there. But it's like always, you have to look out for it and do that. Just had 3 albums, and Talk, Keys to Ascension, and The Ladder in '99. Didn't they also have what is it? Didn't they also have Union in 1990? Or is that the Yes album nobody talks about? Because yeah, Talk looks interesting. I know The Ladder looks interesting to me just based off of artwork. The Onion, 1991, yeah. And yeah. Yeah, because I remember I started reading up a lot on this because I seen somewhere they're talking about Yes and Union, and the more they talked about it, And what went on behind the scenes, I'm kind of like, well, then why make the record? Because it seemed like Wakeman and Howe wanted nothing to do with it. I kind of wish they would have just done another Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe record. Because I know once they talked about getting the band back together, I think Bill knew his days was numbered in that group. I know they had live Tony Levin. I'm not sure if he was an actual member, but that would have been interesting. That's one of the biggest what ifs. What if, yes, instead of reforming, gave us another Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe record? Album sucked. Tour was phenomenal. I bet the tour was insane. Having two drummers, having a bass player, yeah, that would have been interesting. Two guitar players. That's something I wish. That's kind of sad. Uriah Heep never did. Was once Ken Hensley left the band, there was never a second guitar player in Uriah Heep. That was always my saddest part of it. Saw it several times. Yeah, I bet it was. That's one thing that sucks about where I live is it's very. You got Edmonton about an hour north. You got Calgary about 3 hours south. Other than that, you don't get one of those two tour dates, or if they even play there at all. You're kind of hooped. Like that's what sucked about David Gilmour when he did the last tour thing he did. Is he only came to, I believe, Montreal, and that was it in Canada. And it'd be very interesting. Several times. Yeah, man, there's a lot of great songs in there. Oh, what else have I heard that completely blew me away? First time I heard Megadeth's song, The Conjuring. Conjuring was one that completely blew me away the first time I heard that. That thing sounded so sinister, so evil. But man, I love that intro. I remember I was I was listening to it one day, and then I'm like, you know what? I want to learn to play this on guitar. So I started learning to play this on guitar, especially that opening. And it doesn't matter how fast or slow you can play that thing, it sounds evil regardless. And it's one of my all-time favorite Megadeth songs. It's sad that Dave will never play that live again, or said he'll never play it live. It's a song that's probably one of my all-time favorites. That and Devil Island from Peace Sells. Fantastic. If Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe could have got Chris for the first album, things would have been way different. Yeah, I think so. If they could have got Chris Squire, that would have changed absolutely everything. I think Chris Squire's a fantastic bass player, and I think he really is the heart and soul of Yes. So wherever Chris is, that's Yes. Or even a second album, The Onion, never would have happened. I think Union sped up Yes off a major label. I know I'm probably not the only one thinking that. I think it really did, because I know afterwards they were no longer on a big label. And it kind of sped it up. Which is kind of sad, because I think Yes is a fantastic band and deserves kind of the big push behind them. Like, Chris and Alan. Like, I know Bill gets talked about in very high regard, highly so. Alan White is the drummer of Yes. He has been the drummer of Yes for, what was it, 40 years? And every time he seemed like he really enjoyed playing with Yes. So, yeah, it's kind of a shame we're losing all our people so soon, and it's that generation, they're all starting to really sadly die off, which sucks. Man. 40 years for Alan White as drummer, yes. That's kind of where people say certain bands aren't certain bands because they don't have certain members. But then you ask them, well, when did the guy leave? Like in the 70s? It's like, well, it's been 40 years. Somebody replaced him. So that's always been my thought on that. But man, just some great albums through the years. Just some great songs to listen to. I'm trying to think of other songs that completely. Stones. Yes, he did. He replaced Bill. That's one of those replacements where I think both sides actually benefited from the departure. Yes, was able to do what they did with Alan White, and Bill was able to do what he did with King Crimson. Which, listening to the last record, I think he is, at least drum-wise, probably one of the best drummers they had up to the point I've heard so far. Another song that blew my mind the first time I heard it, Dead Flowers by the Rolling Stones. Like, that is a song that I remember I remember hearing, listening to Sticky Fingers, which at the time I just had a download of it, and I was just listening to it full album. There were some songs I'm like, okay, I like that. I remember exactly where I was when I heard. Actually, the 3-song stretch of Sister Morphine, Dead Flowers, and Moonlight Mile, which I think are 3 of the best songs to end an album on. Especially Stones-wise. Like, up to that point, I'd heard songs here and there, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Ruby Tuesday, I know it's only rock and roll, but I like it. Their hits, I pretty much heard. But once I heard that 3-song stretch on Sticky Fingers, I'm like, wow, Painted Black's another one, their hit. There's just something interesting about that, and it's not necessarily the guitar playing, but it's also the lyrics to it. Just fantastic. That's one song. That and Starfucker is the other one from a Goat Head Soup, which I remember the first time I heard that song, and I'm like, oh my god. And then finding out afterwards the Stones had to record in, I want to say Castle in France? But man, Dead Flowers is a fantastic song. Same with, I think they called it Stars, so they wouldn't get in trouble. Because I don't think back then you could stick Starfucker on an album and have it actually be still on the shelf. But if there was a band that probably could have got away with it, it probably would have been the Rolling Stones. I don't know, but I never got on with the Stones. Yeah, me either. Outside of a song here and there, like, I know I did a couple for Here From Exile. Like, they're a band that it's hard because I really like the Sticky Fingers record. I thought that was probably up to that. Like, heard that and I'm like, that's not bad. But listening to the Stones is really, really, it could be a challenge because I know they have some albums that are better than others. I want to check out Exile. I hear a lot of people saying it's one of the best albums ever. I'll be a judge of that, but there's something about them, like, after a while they just become kind of those lovable grandpas that you just see on stage, but their songwriting is that very basic rock and roll, but at times it works very well. Like, they're a really good band. Yeah, like, I know a ton of people who have not enjoyed the Rolling Stones quite a bit. Yeah, thanks for joining me on the stream, Jeff. Have a good night. There will be more yes in the future. I looked at the poll today for the one I had, and it is so close with yes, Genesis, Rush, and Jethro Tull that any of them still could win. Like, I believe they have good stuff, but it's not so for me. Yeah, and that's really the thing. It depends what type of style of music you're into. They were never really my thing either. Like, it's weird because even growing up, like most people say Beatles or Stones. I'm like, I don't know, because I was never. My dad hated both, so he'd never listened to either. Like, it's really amazing to think about like how much my musical thing was impacted by what was allowed to be played in the house. Because I'm like, well, why? Because I asked one day, well, why can't I listen to this? I just don't like them. Back in the day, and that's always been his whole thing, like whether he could tolerate it. And I remember my sister brought home a rap CD one day and was listening to it. Dad went into a room, took it out of the thing, big field across there, just gave it, just whipped it across the thing. I'm like, wow. So I realized early on he had no patience for, as he said, annoying stuff or stuff that I really didn't like. But is what it is. There's so much great stuff out there. It's the great thing about music. There's so much out of it. Yeah, Tommy. he just whipped that thing as far as he could. But he also tells stories of as a kid, my uncle had this sent away for the tape "Surfing USA" by the Beach Boys, and he'd play it nonstop, nonstop, nonstop. So one day they're out in the car, he's listening to the 8-track there. They come to a stop sign. My dad reaches in, grabs the thing, and just whips it. Yeah. Oh man, it just, he had such a fun spirit. And then he said, but your uncle got revenge on me because we were listening one day to Amagama. And he's like, what is this shit? So he went, grabbed it, flung it across the highway. My dad's like, well, it wasn't the worst loss. I wasn't digging it anyway. So, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Like the Stones, yeah, they're a band. I don't know. They're a band I find either like or hate. There never seems to be a middle ground with them. I find that with a lot of bands. There's a like, there's a hate, but there's not really a tolerance. Which is kind of sad because I'm like, there are a lot of bands that I'm not huge on. Yeah, I'll never forget that. So far, yeah, can't believe it. Whipped that CD so far across that field, man. Damn. Oh man, I'm trying to think of other songs that blew my mind the first time I heard them or seen them played. One that actually live, I have to say. Oh, what about Cream? White Room is the song I heard by Cream that I would say blew my mind the first time I heard it. There's just something about that song. That intro, dun, dun, dun. Like, I started learning to play it on guitar and stuff, and it's a really interesting song. Mine too. Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite Cream songs they ever did. Like, I have to say, I'm not big into Cream. Like, I've heard songs here and there, like White Room, Sunshine of Your Love, but there's something about it. And then Clapton's interest. It's really interesting listening to Eric Clapton on White Room. It really is. He's a very interesting guitar player, to say the least. But it's just that rhythm it's just so weird. Like, it just feels awkward playing it. Another song by them I would say I absolutely love is Badge, which I believe was written by George Harrison for Eric Clapton. Clapton wrote While My Guitar Gently Weeps for him, and he wrote Badge for Clapton, so two really good songs. Like, I know Clapton isn't very, I guess, fond of his Cream days, but they're memorable for what they were. And just another so short Clapton project that failed to stay together. Like, I think once he kind of found out that, oh, I like this solo thing, you knew he was never going back to a band. White Room by Cream, that is a... What a Bring Down by Ginger Baker. Never heard it. Or, like, that's a guy... Oh man, that makes me want to do a list. You have Ginger Baker, Yngwie Malmsteen, Ritchie Blackmore. Oh man, that's a list of who had the most insane ego. Like, that would be the list to do, is who had the biggest ego in rock music. I think you could throw Gene Simmons on that list. Whew. Holy crap, been at this for almost 2 hours. Man, time flies when you're having fun. Well, anyway, guys, that's my live stream for today. I have to say, quite enjoyed talking to all of you. And, yeah, I'm not sure when the next live stream's going to be. It's probably going to be, probably sometime this week. I'm going to try and plan these at least, I'm thinking at least once a week, maybe twice a week. Because I really enjoy this, communicating with everybody. It's nice kind of communicating with people and seeing their thoughts on different things, because this is kind of, that's why you've seen a lot more of my polls going up, is because I really like hearing what you guys want to see. Because I'm like, I got to the point where it's like, well, I'm guessing, and my wife just looked at me and said, can you do polls? And it's like, yeah. She said, just put out polls, see what they want to see. So that's what I've been doing. Anyway, yeah, Tommy, it was awesome. Had a great chat. You as well. Have a great weekend. I think either Tuesday maybe, or I might do my next one. I'm just gonna think of a topic for that one. I might also do just a normal stream. Might just leave it open-ended of what to talk about, and we could talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. But anyway, I say once again, thank you guys so much for participating in this, for watching. It really does mean a lot. See you guys soon.